I took this job because I needed to disappear for a while. A bad breakup, mounting debt, a life in the city that had stopped making sense. The wildlife reserve offered isolation, simplicity, a chance to reset. The pay was decent, the work seemed straightforward, and the location was far enough from everything that my problems could not follow me. My name is Graham Finch. I am 29 years old, and 3 months ago I started working at the Blackwater Wildlife Reserve in the remote swamps of southern Louisiana. I was warned during the interview that the night shift was different. The hiring manager, a tired-looking woman named Connie Trahan, was vague about the details. She said the swamp changed after dark, said the night rangers had their own protocols, said I would receive instructions when I started. The instructions came in the form of a laminated card taped to the inside of my locker. 14 rules printed in neat black text. I read them expecting standard safety protocols. What I found was something else entirely. Some rules made sense. Do not leave the station alone after sunset. Keep the radio on at all times. Report any unusual animal behavior immediately. Standard procedures for working in a swamp full of alligators and snakes. But other rules made no sense at all. Rule 6 said, if you see a light moving through the swamp that is not attached to a boat or vehicle, do not investigate. Rule 11 said, if you hear someone calling for help after midnight, verify their identity on the radio before responding. Rule 13 said, never acknowledge anything that speaks to you from the water. And Rule 9, the one that has kept me awake for 3 months now, the one I still do not fully understand. Rule 9 said, do not trust the other rangers after dark. The Blackwater Wildlife Reserve encompasses over 50,000 acres of cypress swamp, bayou, and wetland. The ranger station sits on elevated ground at the northern edge, a modest 2-story building with living quarters upstairs and operations rooms downstairs. A dock extends into the water where airboats are moored. Radio towers rise above the tree line, connecting us to the outside world. During the day, the reserve is beautiful. Spanish moss hanging from ancient trees, still water reflecting the sky. Wildlife everywhere you look. I spent my first week on day shifts, learning the terrain, patrolling the accessible areas, getting to know the other rangers. There were 5 of them. Trent Mouton was the senior ranger, a Cajun native who had worked the reserve for over 20 years. Delia Fontenot handled wildlife rehabilitation and rarely worked nights. Wade Comeau was young and eager, always volunteering for extra shifts. Patricia Ebert was quiet and methodical, keeping mostly to herself. And Russell Landry worked exclusively nights, a gaunt man with hollow eyes who spoke only when necessary. They seemed like normal people, dedicated to their work, comfortable in the isolation. Nothing about them suggested danger or deception, but that was during the day. My first overnight shift was with Trent. He was friendly, talkative, exactly the kind of mentor I had hoped for. He explained the night procedures, the patrol routes, the radio protocols. I asked about the rules, asked why some of them seemed so strange. Trent's demeanor changed. The friendliness remained, but something harder appeared behind his eyes. He said the rules existed for good reasons, said the swamp was different at night, said things lived in these waters that did not show themselves during the day. He did not elaborate. We went out on patrol around 8 that first night. The airboat cut through the darkening water, headlights illuminating the cypress trunks and hanging moss. The swamp transformed as night fell, shadows deepening, sounds changing, the familiar landscape becoming alien. Then Trent cut the engine. We drifted in silence, the boat rocking gently. Trent pointed to the east, toward a section of water that looked no different from any other. He said that was the old channel, said they never went there after dark, said some things were best left alone. I asked what was in the old channel. Trent did not answer. He just started the engine and continued the patrol. We returned to the station around midnight. Everything had been quiet. I started to relax, started to think the rules were exaggerations. Then I saw movement through the station window, a figure standing at the edge of the dock, looking toward the water. It was Russell Landry. But something about the way he stood, the angle of his head, the stillness of his body, was wrong. I reached for the radio to call out to him. Trent grabbed my arm, shook his head, pointed at Rule 9 on the laminated card. Do not trust the other rangers after dark. Over the following weeks, I worked multiple night shifts, always paired with a senior ranger, always watching, always learning. I saw things that made no sense. Lights drifting through the swamp with no source, bobbing between trees like lanterns carried by invisible hands. I learned not to follow them. Learned that rangers who followed the lights sometimes came back changed. Sometimes did not come back at all. I heard things that should not exist. Voices calling from the water, speaking names that no one had spoken aloud, asking for help in tones that mimicked people I knew. I learned not to respond. Learned to verify every call on the radio before acting. Learned that the swamp could imitate anyone. I experienced things that defied explanation. Nights when the patrol boat returned with scratches on the hull that no one had made. Mornings when equipment showed signs of use that no one remembered. The rules began to make sense. Each one was a protection against something specific, something the rangers had encountered and survived. But Rule 9 remained a mystery. I watched the other rangers carefully. During the day, they were normal, professional, trustworthy. At night, they changed. Trent would stare at the water for minutes at a time, his eyes unfocused, his breathing shallow. Wade would laugh at things that were not funny, his voice slightly off-pitch. Patricia would disappear for hours, reappearing without explanation, smelling faintly of swamp water, even though she had not been outside. And Russell was the worst. He prowled the station at night like he was looking for something, his movements too fluid, his attention too focused. Sometimes I would turn a corner and find him standing there, watching me with those hollow eyes. I would remember Rule 9 and wonder if the thing watching me was really Russell at all. The incident that made me understand came during my 4th week. I was paired with Wade Como on patrol in the southern section of the reserve. Wade stopped the boat, cut the engine, turned to me with an expression that was not quite right. He said he needed to show me something. Said there was a place in the old channel that the other rangers did not want me to see. Said I could trust him, that he was different from the others. I remembered Rule 9. I asked Wade to take us back to the station. His face flickered. Something behind his eyes shifted, tried a different approach. He said I was making a mistake, said the station was not safe, said the thing I should really be afraid of was waiting for me there. I reached for my radio, called in to Trent, who was monitoring from the station, asked for confirmation of our position. Wade's expression went blank, completely blank, like someone had wiped all emotion from his face. Then he smiled. Not Wade's smile. Something else wearing Wade's face, using his muscles, imitating the expression without understanding what it meant. He lunged at me. I threw myself backward over the side of the boat into the black water of the swamp. I surfaced, gasping, treading water, watching as Wade stood in the boat above me, that wrong smile still on his face. The radio crackled. Trent's voice, asking for our status. Wade answered. In Wade's voice, cheerful and casual, saying everything was fine, saying we would be back soon. I did not call out, because I did not know if the thing on the radio was really Trent. I swam, kept to the shadows, navigated by the stars, made my way back to the station on foot through miles of swamp. It took me until nearly dawn. When I arrived, Wade was there. Normal Wade, confused Wade. Wade, who did not remember anything after starting the patrol. The thing in the boat had not been Wade at all. Trent told me the truth after that night. We sat in the station as dawn broke, and he finally explained what lived in Blackwater. He said there was something in the swamp, something old, something hungry. It had lived in these waters long before humans arrived. It could not leave the reserve, was bound somehow to this place. But within the boundaries of Blackwater, it was almost unlimited in power. It could not take physical form on its own, but it could wear people, could slip inside them during the vulnerable hours of darkness, use their bodies, access their memories, become them in every way that mattered. The Rangers knew, had always known. They had developed the rules to protect themselves, to identify when someone had been compromised. Rule 9 was the most important. Do not trust the other Rangers after dark, because at any moment, the person standing next to you might not be a person anymore. I asked how to tell the difference. Trent said you could not always tell. The thing was too good at mimicry, but there were signs. The wrongness in the eyes, the slight delay in responses, the way it sometimes forgot details. And there was one foolproof test. The thing could not cross running water on its own, could not leave the boat, could not ford a stream, could not pass over the drainage channel that ran behind the station. If you suspected someone, lead them across running water. If they hesitated, if they made excuses, you had your answer. I asked why the Rangers stayed. Trent said someone had to. If the Rangers left, if the reserve was abandoned, the thing would spread, would find new hosts, new ways to reach the outside world. The Rangers were not just protecting wildlife. They were containing something that could not be allowed to escape. The paranoia infected everything after that. Every interaction became suspect. Every conversation carried undertones of danger. I watched my co-workers constantly, looking for signs of wrongness. The days were bearable. Whatever lived in the swamp seemed weaker during daylight. I could relax somewhat, could trust that the others were probably themselves. But the nights were agony. I worked with Trent, with Wade, with Russell, never knowing if the person beside me was friend or predator. Every patrol was an exercise in vigilance. I started noticing things. Wade sometimes forgot details about conversations from the day before. Patricia's laugh sounded different on certain nights. Trent occasionally used phrases that did not fit his usual speech. And Russell never seemed to change. But that might have been worse, because the thing in the swamp was good at pretending. And Russell was always so still, so quiet, so unreadable. I began to wonder if any of them were really themselves. I considered leaving, walking away from Blackwater forever. But there was another reason I could not leave. I had started to notice something about myself. Gaps in my memory after difficult nights. Moments when I would lose time, would find myself standing somewhere with no memory of walking there. Mornings when my clothes smelled of swamp water even though I had not been outside. I did not know if I was being taken. Did not know if the thing was already inside me. I did not know if I could trust myself. I decided to test myself. I waited until I was alone in the station, then walked to the drainage channel behind the building. Running water, the one thing the creature could not cross. I stepped into the channel, walked through the shallow water, feeling it cold against my ankles. Reached the other side without hesitation. I was still myself. But as I climbed out, I saw someone watching from the station window. Russell Landry, standing perfectly still, his hollow eyes fixed on me. I waved. Russell did not wave back. I went back inside, found Russell in the operations room, looking at equipment readouts. I asked if he had been watching me from the window. Russell said no. Said he had been in the operations room for the past hour. There was no one else in the station. Either Russell was lying, or something else had been at the window. Something wearing Russell's face. I thought about asking Russell to walk through the drainage channel with me. But what if Russell refused? What if the thing inside him realized what I was doing? I said nothing, just nodded, accepted the explanation. And I started planning, because sooner or later, something was going to force the truth into the open. Everything fell apart on a night in late October. A full moon illuminated the swamp, the air heavy with moisture. All 5 rangers were on duty, a rare occurrence called for by unusual activity in the reserve. Animals behaving strangely, boats found adrift, lights seen in areas that should have been empty. We gathered in the operations room, Trent, Wade, Patricia, Russell, and me. 5 people who might not all be people. Trent outlined the plan. Pairs would patrol different sections, while one ranger manned the station. I watched the others as Trent spoke, looking for signs of wrongness. I saw it in Patricia, just a flicker, a moment when her attention shifted to something none of us could see, a moment when her lips moved, forming words that made no sound. Then Wade, his laugh at one of Trent's jokes, slightly wrong. His movements slightly delayed. Then Russell, always watching, always still. I looked at Trent, the senior ranger, the one who had taught me the rules. Trent met my eyes, and for just a second, I saw something behind his gaze, something old, and patient and hungry. Then it was gone. I understood then. I was alone in a room with 4 people who might all be compromised, 4 rangers who might all be puppets for the thing in the swamp. I was the only one I could trust, and the night was just beginning. I waited until the briefing ended, until patrol assignments were made. I was paired with Russell, the worst possible assignment. I made an excuse, said I needed to check something in the equipment room, slipped away from the others, moved quietly through the station, made my way to the back door. The drainage channel was there, running water. I stepped into the water, waded through it, moving as quietly as I could, reached the other side. Behind me, I heard the station door open, heard footsteps, heard multiple voices calling my name. The voices were wrong, all of them wrong, speaking in unison, harmonizing in ways that human voices should not harmonize. I ran into the swamp, away from the station, into the darkness. The things that wore my co-workers' faces could not follow, could not cross the running water. I could hear them at the edge, calling to me, promising safety, promising explanations. I did not look back. I spent the night in the swamp, moving constantly, staying near water, avoiding the lights that drifted between the trees. When the sun finally rose, I made my way to the access road, found my car where I had left it, drove away from Blackwater without stopping. I filed a report with the Wildlife Service, told them there had been an incident, that the staff had been compromised, that the reserve needed investigation. They sent a team. The team found nothing wrong. The rangers were all present, all healthy, all insisting that I had suffered some kind of breakdown. I did not argue, did not try to explain, because I knew they would not believe me. And I knew, looking at the photographs from the investigation, that the faces of the rangers were not quite right. The eyes were too empty. The smiles were too wide. The thing in the swamp had won. It had taken everyone, and now it was pretending that nothing had happened. If you ever find yourself working a remote job, a night shift, a position that seems too good to be true, read the rules carefully. All of them, especially the ones that do not make sense. And if the rules tell you not to trust your co-workers, listen. The Blackwater Reserve is still operating. Rangers are still assigned there, still working day and night shifts, still patrolling the swamp. But the people who work there are not the same people who were hired. I have seen them in town. The rangers who should not have left the reserve, should not have been able to cross the boundaries that contain them. Shopping, eating, talking to people, acting normal in every way. But I can see the wrongness in their eyes, the slight delay in their movements, the emptiness behind their smiles. The thing is spreading, learning, finding ways to overcome its limitations. I do not know how to stop it. Do not know if it can be stopped at all. The 14th rule on the laminated card said if you survive Blackwater, do not speak of what happened. Do not write about it. Do not try to warn anyone. I am breaking that rule now. Breaking it because someone needs to know. Someone needs to understand what is growing in those swamps. I look at the faces around me now, on the streets, in the stores, everywhere I go. I look for the wrongness, look for the signs, the hollow eyes, the delayed responses, the smiles that do not quite reach the face. I see them more often than I should, in places far from Louisiana, far from any swamp. Last week, I saw someone I recognized, one of the rangers from Blackwater, standing in line at a coffee shop in Denver. He looked right at me, smiled that wrong smile. Then he walked away, did not say anything, did not approach, just walked away like he had not seen me at all. But he saw me. They all see me now. They are waiting, watching, learning where I go, who I talk to, where I might be vulnerable. I do not know how much longer I can hide. Do not know how far their reach extends now. All I know is that I trusted the wrong people, stayed too long in a place I should have fled, and barely escaped with my life. If you work somewhere with rules that do not make sense, follow them anyway. If you work with people who seem different after dark, keep your distance. And if you ever find yourself in a swamp in southern Louisiana, near a place called Blackwater, turn around, drive away. Do not stop for anything, because the thing that lives there is hungry, and it is no longer content to stay in the swamp. It is spreading, one face at a time, one body at a time, and sooner or later, it will reach you too. Look at the people around you. Really look. How many of them are still themselves? How would you even know